had never imagined his life would change in a single day, but that morning everything shifted. He was sitting at his small kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee when a knock came at the door. He hesitated, expecting a delivery or a neighbor, but when he opened it, he froze. Standing there was. She was taller than him, with delicate violet skin that shimmered faintly in the soft morning light. Her long, golden eyes studied him with quiet curiosity, as if she were trying to see through him and into his soul. Her hair floated slightly around her face, almost as if it had a life of its own. "Hi, I'm your new roommate," she said in a voice that was soft, musical, and strange. There was no trace of fear or arrogance, only calmness. Blinked, unsure if he should speak first or just step aside. The words felt clumsy on his tongue. "I welcome," he managed, motioning awkwardly to the small apartment behind him. She smiled faintly, and it was so genuine that he felt an odd warmth in his chest, something he hadn't felt in a long time. At first, it was difficult to adjust. Moved gracefully through the apartment, her presence unlike anything had known. She touched objects lightly, as if she could feel their history through her skin. She cleaned in patterns that made the small space look almost magical. She even organized his books by some system he didn't understand, but it made him smile every time he saw it. Strange, alien flowers appeared in tiny vases she had placed around the apartment, glowing faintly at night. They gave off a soft light that made the rooms feel alive. Tried to maintain his usual routine, work, meals, small chores, but he found himself distracted. He would catch her humming quietly in the kitchen while cooking meals that smelled sweet and unfamiliar. She never used recipes from any human cookbook. Her dishes seemed alive with colors and flavors he couldn't name. Sometimes, he would peek at her as she prepared food, mesmerized by the fluid motions of her hands. There was something hypnotic about the way she moved, a rhythm that felt natural and comforting, even though he didn't understand it. At night, when he lay on his small bed, he found himself listening to the soft sounds of her apartment chores or the faint hum she whispered to herself. It wasn't just curiosity. He felt a strange sense of peace being near her. Had always been practical, always careful not to let emotions get too close. Yet his presence broke down those walls slowly, almost imperceptibly. It was not fear, it was not tension, it was familiarity. A sense that he was not alone in the universe, even though everything about her screamed alien. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the windows, returned from work to find sitting cross-legged on the floor with a small glowing plant floating above her palm. She looked up and smiled. "It grows faster when I sing," she said. Her voice was a whisper against the rain, delicate and soothing. He knelt beside her, watching the plant twirl and pulse with light. For the first time, he realized that life could be strange and beautiful all at once, and that the universe was far bigger and more incredible than he had imagined. That night, as he fell asleep, felt something new stirring in his chest. He didn't yet understand it. He only knew that he no longer wanted to leave. She was not just a roommate. She was something different, something vital. And for reasons he couldn't yet name, he felt that his life had begun only when she entered it. Outside, the city lights flickered, and somewhere beyond the stars, a galaxy waited. But here, in this tiny apartment, a human and an alien had begun a quiet story that would change both of them forever. Life began to feel like walking into a world he'd only seen in dreams. Every day brought small wonders he could never have imagined. One morning, he woke to find her kneeling by the window, her hands hovering over tiny, floating jars of glowing plants. "They like sunlight," she whispered, her golden eyes reflecting the morning glow. Watched in awe as one plant drifted slowly toward the sunbeam, spinning and twisting, as if dancing to an invisible song. Laughed softly when she noticed him watching. "Do you want to try?" she asked. Hesitant at first, reached out his hand. The plant hovered above his palm, warm and gentle, responding to his touch. A shiver ran down his spine. He couldn't explain why, but he felt connected, not just to the plant but to her, as if their energy intertwined. She smiled, a small tilt of her lips, and his chest felt tight. Evenings were the most magical, would set up little holographic lights around the apartment. They shimmered and moved in patterns that changed with her mood. One night, she conjured tiny winged creatures that fluttered through the room, leaving trails of glittering light. Laughed, a sound he hadn't heard from himself in months, chasing them and trying to catch them in his hands. Laughter joined his, melodic and soft, filling the apartment with a warmth that made the world outside fade. She also had a way of understanding him that no one else ever had. When he came home tired or frustrated, would simply place her hand on his shoulder or sit near him in silence. Her presence alone seemed to ease the weight from his shoulders. Sometimes, he would find himself staring at her golden eyes, wondering what mysteries lay behind them. There was a wisdom there and a gentle sadness, but also a quiet joy that he wanted to protect. His curiosity about human life fascinated him too. She would ask questions that seemed simple but made him think deeply. "Why do humans fear change?" she asked one evening as they shared a meal. Paused, realizing he hadn't thought about it in years. They talked for hours, exchanging ideas, sharing small secrets and laughing at the strangeness of their worlds. Each conversation drew them closer, weaving invisible threads of trust and companionship. Sometimes their bond revealed itself in moments of unintentional closeness. One night during a quiet storm, reached out to steady him as he slipped on the wet floor. Their hands brushed, lingering longer than either expected. Felt a warmth spread through him, a mix of fear and hope. Didn't pull away. Instead, she simply smiled softly, and in that smile felt a connection deeper than friendship. He also began noticing the little things she did for him. The way she remembered his favorite drink, how she adjusted the temperature of the apartment just right, or the tiny glowing flower she left on his desk every morning. They weren't grand gestures, but they were intimate, personal. Each one whispered that he mattered to her, just as she had come to matter to him. By the end of the week, realized that his apartment no longer felt like just a place to sleep. It was alive, vibrant, and filled with laughter, music, and soft golden eyes that watched over him. He began to look forward to each day, not just for the strange and beautiful things brought into his life, but for her presence, her smile, her gentle voice. As he lay in bed that night, listening to humming a soft alien melody from the kitchen, knew one truth clearly. She was no longer just a roommate. She was someone who had entered his life and reshaped it in ways he hadn't expected, making ordinary moments extraordinary. And even though he didn't yet understand what the future held, he knew that as long as she was there, he was not alone. The quiet life had grown used to shatter the morning the news arrived. Alerts blared from every screen, every device. The Galactic War had finally reached Earth's space borders. Alien fleets clashed with human defenses in distant colonies, and the reports were terrifying. Cities destroyed, ships lost, thousands of lives vanished in a single day. The world seemed to shrink into fear and uncertainty. His apartment, once a haven, suddenly felt fragile and small. Sat on the floor near the window, her golden eyes fixed on the news. For the first time, noticed a tremor in her normally calm demeanor. Her lips pressed together and her hands, so graceful and gentle, clenched slightly in her lap. "It comes closer," she said quietly, her voice heavy with something he could not understand. He tried to ask what she meant, but she only shook her head. "Not yet, not safe." That night the apartment felt colder. Couldn't stop glancing at her, worried. Who had seemed so full of light and wonder now carried a shadow in her gaze. She moved slower, more carefully, and often paused mid-task as if listening to sounds only she could hear. Wanted to comfort her, to ask questions, but he feared breaking the fragile calm she tried to maintain. So he simply stayed near, helping in small ways, fetching water, adjusting the lighting, sitting quietly beside her. Days passed and the news worsened. Human colonies were falling and the alien forces she belonged to, though she never said it aloud, were losing ground. Could feel her tension, the constant anxiety that vibrated through the air around her. One evening, as they shared a meal in silence, suddenly touched his hand. Her touch was light, but it carried a weight he could feel deep in his chest. "I could lose everything," she whispered. Her golden eyes glistened with unshed tears. "Even you." Froze. He had never imagined that someone he considered a roommate, a friend, could mean so much. Seeing her fear, so raw and unguarded, broke something inside him. He gripped her hand gently, trying to anchor her. "You won't," he said, his voice firm but trembling. "I won't let that happen. I'll protect you. Always." She looked at him then, and for the first time her usual calm returned, but it was different, softer, more vulnerable. She nodded, a small gesture that somehow spoke volumes. "Then stay with me," she murmured, "even when the stars fall." His heart tightened. He realized in that instant that he didn't just want to stay with her. He couldn't imagine surviving without her. The first shadow of war brought them closer. Every day was laced with worry, every night with uncertainty. Yet in that darkness, small moments of connection shone like distant stars, taught him to remain still when fear threatened to control him, to breathe and focus. In turn, brought her laughter and small comforts from human life, warm blankets, hot meals, quiet songs that reminded her of Earth's skis. They clung to these moments, even as the universe seemed to be crumbling beyond their door. One evening, a distant explosion shook the city and the ground trembled beneath their apartment. Instinctively reached for him, pulling him close. He wrapped his arms around her, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat against his chest. In that instant, the enormity of the war, the danger, the uncertainty, it all felt smaller. Not gone, but manageable. Together. Realized that he could survive almost anything if she was there. And despite the fear in her eyes, had found someone she could rely on, someone human, someone stubborn, someone willing to stand by her when the galaxy seemed intent on tearing everything apart. That night, as the city's lights flickered under the shadow of distant battles and sat side by side, hands entwined, hearts beating in silent promise, the war was coming closer, faster, more violent. But in that quiet apartment, in the space they had carved together, hope flickered. Not just for survival, but for something far more powerful: trust, connection, and the unspoken bond that was growing between a human and an alien. The first real danger came without warning, and had been gathering supplies outside the city when alarms blared overhead. Human and alien ships clashed in the sky, explosions shaking the streets. Smoke filled the air, stinging their eyes. For a moment froze, unsure of which way to go. Grabbed his arm with surprising strength and determination. "This way, hurry," she shouted, her golden eyes sharp and urgent. They ran through alleys and shattered streets, dodging debris and falling sparks. His movements were precise, almost instinctive, as if she could sense the danger before it even arrived. Followed, his heart hammering, trying to match her speed. The chaos was overwhelming. The sounds of fire, metal, and screaming filled the air. But somehow, despite the terror, he felt a strange calm when he glanced at her. She was not just guiding him. She was protecting him. Finally, they reached an old transport pod, abandoned in the debris, scanned it quickly and nodded. "This will take us away," she said. Fumbled with the controls, his hands shaking, but she placed her hand over his, steadying him. A soft warmth spread from her touch, and for the first time, fear became manageable. Together, they activated the pod, and it lifted off unevenly, shaking violently as it escaped the burning city. The flight was terrifying. Gripped the seat as the pod plunged through layers of atmosphere, each jolt making his stomach flip. Outside, the city burned, distant explosions marking the chaos below. Held his hand through it all, whispering calm phrases he couldn't fully understand, yet they worked. He realized that no amount of fear could break him as long as she was beside him. Their bond, fragile yet unshakable, had become a lifeline. When they finally crash-landed on a remote forested moon, the silence hit them like a wave. Trees swayed under alien winds, and the sky above shimmered with unfamiliar stars. Looked at, expecting relief or joy, but saw something else: fear and vulnerability. I could lose everything," she said softly, her voice breaking. "Even you." His heart clenched. He had faced danger before, but seeing her like this was different. She had always been so strong, so graceful, so sure of herself. Now, stripped of everything except their shared will to survive, she looked human in her fear. He pulled her close, holding her tight as if he could shield her from the entire universe. "You won't," he whispered. "I promise. I'll never let you face this alone." The night on the forested moon was cold, and the alien stars glimmered overhead. They built a small shelter together from fallen branches and scattered debris, using his abilities to shape and stabilize the structure, marveled at her focus and care. She worked tirelessly, yet always kept an eye on him, making sure he was safe. In return, he offered what little comfort he could, warm meals, blankets, and words of encouragement. As they sat together by a small, flickering fire, finally allowed herself to relax. She leaned against him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder, felt a warmth in his chest he couldn't explain. This was no longer just survival. This was trust, and it was beginning to feel like something deeper. He realized that in the middle of chaos, danger, and fear, they had found a rare gift, each other. Looked up at the alien sky, the stars unlike anything he had seen on Earth, and realized that no matter what the war threw at them, he had someone to face it with. His alien roommate had become far more than that. She was a partner in survival, a source of hope, and a reason to keep moving forward when the galaxy itself seemed to be falling apart. In the quiet of the moon, with danger behind them and uncertainty ahead, understood that their bond had grown into something unbreakable, something worth fighting for, no matter the cost. The forested moon was alive in a way had never imagined. Trees glowed faintly in the dark, and streams reflected colors that didn't exist on Earth. Every step they took was careful, every sound amplified in the quiet. Danger could be anywhere: enemy patrols, wild creatures, or unpredictable terrain. Yet amid the constant tension, something remarkable happened, and began to learn the rhythm of each other. Revealed abilities he had only glimpsed before. Her touch could heal small wounds, her senses could detect danger even in complete darkness, and her presence carried a strange, calming energy. Watched her in awe, realizing that she was more than just a roommate or friend. She was extraordinary. Yet she did not flaunt her power. She moved with humility and focus, guiding him, protecting him, and trusting him to make decisions when he could. In return, shared what he knew of survival. He taught her how to read the forest, which plants were safe, and how to find clean water. He showed her simple tricks, how to set a trap, how to stay silent when danger approached, and how to use tools to make life just a little easier. Absorbed everything quickly, her golden eyes shining with curiosity and respect. With each lesson, felt a growing sense of pride, not for himself, but for the bond they were building. They slept under the alien stars, wrapped in blankets, talking softly about their worlds. Described cities that floated above oceans, forests that glimmered in constant twilight, and creatures that spoke with thoughts rather than sounds. Shared memories of forests and oceans, of sunsets that burned orange across the horizon, of rainy days that smelled like home. In these exchanges, they found something deeper than friendship: understanding. Each story revealed who they were and what they had lost. One evening, a storm swept across the forest. Rain lashed their shelter and the wind bent the glowing trees. Panicked at first, worried the structure would collapse. Hands glowed faintly as she reinforced the shelter, her focus absolute. "Trust me," she said calmly, her golden eyes meeting his. Closed his eyes, letting go of fear, allowing himself to rely on her. When he opened them again, the shelter was intact, safe. The lesson was simple but profound. They were stronger together than apart. They also shared moments of quiet laughter and joy. Created tiny, floating lights that danced around their camp and chased them, laughing like a child. She mimicked his clumsy movements, and he teased her with exaggerated gestures. In those fleeting moments, the harsh reality of war faded. The universe could be cruel and chaotic, but in their small corner of the moon, they had found warmth, comfort, and trust. One night, as they sat by the river of liquid crystal, rested her hand on his arm. "I never thought I could feel safe," she said softly, almost to herself. "But here with you I do." His heart pounded. He didn't just feel protective, he felt something far deeper, something he couldn't yet name but understood instinctively. He placed his hand over hers, squeezing gently. "Then we stay together," he said. "Always, no matter what comes." By now realized that the war, the chaos, and the dangers of the galaxy were shaping something powerful within them. They were no longer just human and alien sharing a space. They were partners, bound by trust, courage, and understanding. Each day their bond grew stronger, each challenge made them closer. And amid the alien forests, under strange stars, knew one truth with certainty. No matter what happened next, they would face it together. And had been surviving together for weeks, navigating the alien forest, scavenging food, and avoiding enemy patrols. Each day brought new dangers, but their bond had grown stronger with every challenge. Yet nothing had prepared them for the decision they faced now. While exploring a ridge overlooking a shimmering valley, they spotted a small alien ship, barely intact, with survivors trapped inside. Eyes widened in alarm and sorrow. "They need help," she whispered. His heart raced. The enemy fleet was not far behind. Staying meant risking everything. They could be captured or killed. Leaving meant abandoning those in desperate need. The choice was unbearable. Turned to him, her golden eyes steady despite the fear in her voice. "You can go. I will help them. You do not have to." "Cut her off." "I'm not leaving you," he said firmly. His chest tightened. He realized in that moment that he had never wanted to be anywhere else but by her side. "If you go, I go. If you fight, I fight. We survive together." The decision made, they approached the ship carefully, using the forest's shadows to hide. The survivors inside were wounded, scared, and weak. Hands glowed faintly as she touched them, healing cuts and bruises. Helped carry them to safety, moving with a precision he had never known he possessed. Every step was tense, every sound could betray them, but together they worked seamlessly, human and alien moving as one. Just as they thought they were safe, enemy patrols appeared on the ridge. Explosions lit the valley and the ground shook under the approaching ships. Felt panic rise but was immediately grounded by his presence. She reached for him, her hand warm and firm. "We fight together," she said. That simple phrase, calm yet resolute, filled him with courage he did not know he had. The battle was chaotic, and used every skill they had learned together. The human ingenuity he had taught her, her alien abilities, her speed, her perception of danger. They dodged blasts, guided the survivors, and created diversions that allowed them to escape the worst of the attack. Their trust in each other was absolute. Every move they made relied on the other. Without her, he would have been lost. Without him, she would have been overwhelmed. When the enemy finally retreated, the survivors safe and collapsed side by side in the forest. Sweat, dirt, and fatigue covered them, but their hearts were pounding with relief and triumph. Looked at him, golden eyes soft and tired. "You stayed," she whispered, her voice shaking slightly. "I stayed," replied, his hand finding hers instinctively. "I'll stay always." For a long while they sat together under the alien stars, breathing in the cool night air, letting the quiet wash over them. They did not speak. Words were unnecessary. The silence was full of understanding, gratitude, and unspoken promises. In the heat of danger, they had discovered the truth of their bond. It was no longer just trust or friendship. It was something far deeper, something that neither time nor war could sever. As dawn approached, painting the forest in hues of violet and silver, realized something profound. The war could destroy cities, fleets, and colonies, but it could not destroy what they had built together. They had chosen each other, fought side by side, and emerged stronger. In that moment he understood that was no longer just an alien, no longer just a roommate. She was his partner in every sense. His companion in survival, in hope, in life itself. And as they looked at the rising twin suns of the alien sky, hand in hand, knew that whatever the galaxy sent next, they would face it together, unafraid, unbroken, and more connected than ever before. Weeks passed since the battle on the ridge, and the alien forest became a small sanctuary for End. They built a modest shelter near a crystal-clear stream, the water shimmering with colors that changed with the sunlight. The survivors they had saved had gone on to rebuild elsewhere, leaving the two of them alone, but not lonely. The days were quiet, filled with routine and small joys, and the nights were luminous with alien stars and soft laughter. Often marveled at how much their lives had changed. Just weeks ago had been his roommate, a mysterious being who brought wonder into his mundane world. Now she was something far more, an irreplaceable presence, a partner, and a source of hope. He found himself waking early, just to see her standing by the stream, her golden eyes reflecting the sunlight as she tended to the glowing plants that thrived under her care. Even in silence, she radiated warmth and life. Two had changed. The fear that had once shadowed her eyes now lingered only in memory. With beside her, she moved through the forest with confidence and ease. She laughed more freely, sang softly to the glowing flowers, and sometimes just watched him as he worked on small repairs around their shelter. Their connection was quiet but profound, built on weeks of shared danger, trust, and unspoken understanding. One evening, under twin suns that painted the sky in violet and gold, and sat together on a hill overlooking their small haven, he reached out and took her hand, feeling the warmth that had become his anchor in a universe full of chaos. "Do you ever think about home?" he asked quietly, smiled softly, her eyes distant. "I think home is wherever I am with you now," she said. The words hit him like a gentle wave. She had once belonged to a galaxy far beyond his reach, but now, in this quiet place, they belonged together. They spent their days exploring the moon, discovering hidden groves, glowing caves, and streams filled with liquid crystal, taught about human storytelling, and she taught him about the ancient songs of her people. Every evening ended the same way. Side by side, hands entwined, hearts beating in quiet harmony. The bond they had forged in war had grown into something unbreakable, a love that needed no words, no promises, only presence. Even the dangers of the galaxy felt distant now. The war still raged in the distance, but on this moon it was as if time had paused. Understood, finally, that survival had been the first step, but living, truly living, was what they had discovered together. He no longer measured life by safety or routine. He measured it by the moments spent with, by the laughter shared, by the silent understanding of a touch or glance. One night, as they watched the alien constellations, leaned against him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. "I never thought I could feel peace," she whispered, kissed her forehead gently. "Then we will stay here, together, always," he replied. There was no doubt, no hesitation. War had tried to take everything from them, but it had failed. Instead, it had given them something stronger than fear, a bond forged in fire, tempered in trust, and made unbreakable by love. As the moons rose and bathed the forest in silver light, realized he no longer saw as just a roommate or even just a friend. She was his anchor, his companion, his family. In a universe vast and uncertain, they had found certainty in each other. And for the first time in his life, understood that true survival was not merely living, it was having someone worth staying alive for. With hands entwined, hearts aligned, and the alien stars shining above, they sat together in perfect silence, knowing that no matter what the galaxy held, they had already discovered the most extraordinary thing, each other. And in that moment, and were no longer just human and alien, they were something more. They were home.